again, if I'm inverse, I'm sort of scrambling for what I want to play. I'm really at a kind of a loss for words here because Binomises again have shored up every single issue. I like their draft a lot again.
It just feels, I'm not going to say wasted. That seems a little bit too harsh of a term, but it feels like Inverse have lost a lot of the momentum that should be in their hands going after that first pick. So, as you said, you're in a position where normally Inverse would be the one sort of dictating the flow of this draft. Instead, they just kind of have to try to react to what their opponents are doing. And Mista's lineup, I mean, as of right now, point out the weak spot, right? Like, they don't really have much that they need to be afraid of right now, and that's very much a situation that they really sought after and found in game one as well. Their lineup just performed so well. You couldn't identify one hero that was really going to be the weak link among them, and we do still have one final pick in for them, so there could be some sort of overreach or mistake on that front. But so far, it just feels like they're putting together something a little bit stronger. Inverse, though, do at least get their hands on the Jug, which is at least going to give them someone with a fair bit of damage and some durability as well with that Blade Fury. So you're not going to have a carry who can just get sort of picked off at any point, but I don't really know if that's going to be enough with this current line.
And again, I think it's just Bino Mises taking their loss versus SG and learning from it so much. We saw even in the previous series with the Corey. I feel like the teams that lost on day one have taken those losses, internalized them, changed up their strategies, taken a little bit from the enemy team's strategies, because it feels like both Bino Mises and Hikori are utilizing every part of the meta that we've seen sort of adapt and change, where I think Inverse is not really playing towards that beat. They're trying to move in their own direction, something again that they've done before, that they've continued to do despite the results. And this Juggernaut, it's got a 77% win rate in the team. So maybe there's a little bit of magic there. But even now, I feel like you're picking it versus DK. DK's got an instant stun. If you ever die, if you get chained up, you're dead. And again, you're lacking this hero that's going to naturally combo with the Grimstroke. Of course, Grimstroke Jug, classic lane. He's gonna run at you. He's gonna spin. You've got a lot of magic damage. And versus a hero like DK that's majorly really right-click damage and physical damage reduction, maybe you're gonna find a little bit of a hole there. But then you've got one of the best sort of shrug you off of your offlaner supports in that Hoodwinked, where as soon as you try to get aggressive, if you're not fast enough on that spin, you Inkspo, you get bushwhacked, and then the play's dead. And I feel like right now, Bino Mises, they're playing June, 24th Dota right now, and Inverse are lagging a little bit behind the 8 ball. And I'm really worried because I don't know what they're going to pick here to shore up their issue. Clearly, Inverse think that this is going to be a 4 tiny, an offlane Kunkka, and then a mid, I don't know what, but it just feels really awkward right now.
And just, I don't know. As you said, awkward. That's the right word for it. Inverse just don't seem to have an option that's glaringly obvious for this lineup at the moment, at least based on what we're sort of assuming that they want to do with those previous four picks. So, not entirely sure what the game plan is going to be for them. Will it be the Kunkka in that off lane? Do they shift him mid and look for maybe some sort of position 3 hero here with this final pick? There's just so much up in the air for them, and normally you would consider that to be a good thing for a team to have that degree of flexibility heading into this final pick, but the flexibility isn't necessarily by design. It seems like more of a result of some stranger decisions earlier on in the draft. This is not a situation where they intentionally wanted to have this flexibility. They just feel like they weren't entirely sure what they wanted. But the Mars was still in there. Somehow got all the way through those bans, so Inverse will pick that one up. And I mean, that's probably the best they would have been able to do in that situation. You get some teamfight strength, some lockdown to work with, a frontline fighter to maybe take some of the pressure away from the Jug and the Kunkka, and hopefully, if that is an offlane Mars, then Melee can do something from that sort of position 3 role, try to act as that initiator, maybe catch Beatomistas off guard as often as possible.
And really, they're lucky it was still in the pool because otherwise, you couldn't pick Beastmaster, you couldn't pick one of those single target disables, and Vietnamese just going to go for the safe pick, sort of the lane winner. Because again, you're picking this Troll Warlord into a double melee lineup. You have those axes. You're not really able to lose trades. And with the Amadon as well, I'm sure he's going to pick up an Orb of Venom. And then Inverse, again, they have to be so careful. And now Vietnamistas I feel like they're just going to run at you. I feel like they're going to push down all of your towers, and to that point, it is going to need to be flawless play coming in from the Mars, because he is the tower defender. He is the one who's going to show up first, use his spells. If those spells don't go off well, if something goes wrong, then the tower is dead, and that's where you're going to see Quesadilla maybe playing in the side lanes a little bit more. There isn't that sort of BKB piercing disable. There's no Tusk in the game. You're not going to need to be worried, at least too worried, about getting your TP disabled. But again, if the best part of your draft is playing around the enemy team pushing down your towers, I feel like you need to have a little bit of a better idea, because again, this is a jug. This ain't no TB. This isn't going to be your 1v9 hero. And we've seen juggernauts before be very powerful, be very successful. But now, again, it's one of those heroes that feels sort of alien in the meta. It feels like it's a lot more difficult to play heroes like that, where your timing falls a little bit shorter than heroes like the TB, like the PL, and you're just worse at hitting towers. Before, you would have this crazy timing with Healing Ward, where you show up mid with maybe a Maelstrom, and then suddenly the fight starts to break out. And I feel like Inverse, they're trying to foster some of that little old play, and that's where I think BINOMISTAS, the numbers just favor them. I feel like their heroes just might be a little too good.
Yeah, we saw a little bit in the previous series as well between Hikori and Lotsum Defenders. There are teams who are still trying to sort of force the older edition of the meta back into favor, and so far it really hasn't worked out for the team that sort of tries to bring back not even old strategies, just older strategies compared to what their opponents are running here. So if you're Inverse, it's always going to be a possibility for them. We're not going to rule a team out here right at the very start, but what they're running seems to be lagging behind a little bit, as you were sort of mentioning early in the draft, compared to what BINOMISTAS are putting together. It feels like they have the advantage here in terms of the durability, the farming rate, their ability to push out these lanes, try and take control of the map early on, and if they can do that, especially with Sexy Fat on this Leshrac, if he is able to just push his way into those tier 1s, Inverse are going to have a rough time of it. You mentioned they're sort of building in a way where maybe they can start defending those towers, but that's still going to get a little bit risky for you. You'll have to bring in multiple heroes. You're going to run the risk of taking a fight, and if you end up losing those fights and the towers, then you're just going to be dead in the water maybe 15 to 20 minutes in here with very few ways to recover.
And they even circumvent the eventuality of Mini ending up laning versus that Jug, or rather the DK laning versus the Jug, where now you're going to have a double ranged lane versus the Juggernaut who wants to get aggressive with Inkswell, and that's not a possibility anymore. Both these heroes are naturally very fast, faster than the Jug. Actually, okay, they're even. He bought a Windlace to shore up that. But at the same time, you've got to feel like BINOMISTAS, they've got these ideas, they've got this sort of very sound strategy, and leading the game with Abba, Wesh, it already is very safe. To shore up a DK on top of all that, and there's no answer with maybe an AA, or already seeing the Timbersaw banned out. That's why we saw yesterday with SG, it was the battle of the DKs. Whoever got DK while Timbersaw was banned out felt like they had the advantage, and I really feel like Inverse just didn't value it at all. So we'll have to see how they deal with the aggression, because if they get any kills, your towers are dying. There's nothing you can do about it. The BINOMISTAS lineup is made around rolling objectives.
And it still just feels so, I guess awkward would be the phrase for the Grimstroke. I mean, we talked about the duo in the lane itself. Inkswell into Blade Fury is going to give you some opportunities, but later on down the line, your Soulbind is just okay. You can get maybe a double silence there or something along those lines, but you don't really have fantastic synergy for that sort of ability. So it feels like in your Grimstroke, you sacrifice sort of long-term viability for maybe a slightly better lane, but it feels like a weird sacrifice to make considering that was your first pick. You had your full choice of almost every hero in the field, and the Grimstroke is what they sort of ended up wanting with that first selection. So we'll see what kind of impact Slot can have here, but it just feels like it's not going to be quite as consistent or quite as strong as they'll need it to be later on in the match.
Yep, and really, we won't see too much aggression come out, I think, from this lane. Again, unless that double stun lands, and then anything goes, but it's really going to be up to Quesadilla to not let that happen. If he ever gets stunned, but at the same time, I don't think Inverse are ever going to be able to get aggressive. I don't think they really have the lockdown or control for Inkswell to land, unless they just get really caught out of position. And at the same time, think bottom, yeah, the Abaddon Courier did get sniped out, so he's missing a little bit of regen, but going to be back sooner than later, and they're just fine.
And he can just take a step back, go for the pull here, play a bit more behind-the-scenes role, while the Troll Warlord can sort of step up as that frontliner for really just a minute or so until the Courier respawns. So if you're BINOMISTAS, you're really not hurting too much here. This lane might push out a little bit more depending on the aggro of these ranged creeps, as one of them sort of splits off and the other one remains in the lane. But really, if you're the Troll right now, you truly do not care. 8-2 last hit-wise, he has been put under almost no pressure from this duo, and I'm not really sure what they're going to be able to do here. Maybe Flax could go for the toss play, and depending on where he puts that sort of toss as its sort of endpoint, maybe Melee could go in for the spear after that, but anytime you do that, you're going to be waiting for Nuagas to sort of make his move. He could drop the Aphotic Shield, and then really any aggression you want onto the Troll is going to get broken up immediately. So really, the only target you can go on at this point is the Abba, and said Abba is not showing himself in lane. He's really just sort of, again, staying behind the scenes and making sure he's not sort of an obvious target, although as I say that, Flax is going to be running into him, but he's by himself here. The Mars isn't close enough to help out, so this really isn't going to turn into much more than maybe a little bit of creep pulling and a little bit of right-click damage being exchanged.
And that looks like they will be able to maybe get the pull into the large camp. It's just some good cover, but oh, what a perfect miscoil. He might be able to catch one, but nope. And then top lane, yeah, they just play on him. They just kill off the Grimstroke.
Slaw taken down. Sexy Fat gets the kill as well. So gold into the hands of the Leshrac here early on. He is, as of right now, out farming the Juggernaut in this lane too. So really, if you're inverse, this top lane, it's not going poorly. I think that might be a little bit too harsh to say that, but Quesadilla is not getting as much out of this as the Lesh. At least he's not the one being taken down there, but the other lanes aren't really looking fantastic either. You take a look at the last hit counts across the board here. BINOMISTAS have all three of their cores at the top, and Mickey was getting jumped in on there. Not actually going to be able to kill him off, but it's going to push him out of the lane a bit.
Nice cut. He just didn't let himself get chained up there. Immediately quelled the tree from the hoodwinked, but yeah, it's just this DK hero. Incredibly obnoxious. The Dragon Tail just does a lot of damage, stuns you up. Usually you get at least one creep denied underneath you, and he's just struggling a little bit. It's a much slower Kunkka.
Lane, Sexy Fat gonna get hit up by the Ink Swell. They might actually have him down. Can Sexy Fat... Oh my god, he can dance, and Jupiter's there with the stun.
He's got... Oh, the Split Earth.
That hurts in my soul. Jupiter coming in with the Bushwhack. He wasn't able to make the play mid. This time, though, no way for them to cut down that tree. Gets the stun. It keeps Sexy Fat alive long enough to get the Juggernaut, and then Slaw... I mean, at that point, you're in, right? There's no way to back out. You go all in for that kill. Once the Jug's dead, you really won't be able to back out yourself, and that's going to be Sexy Fat picking up both of those kills. And now Nuagas able to get the pick off onto Melee down in the bottom lane. He and Benny push in, and the Mars just really didn't have enough to keep himself alive. Flax couldn't create that separation either with the toss, and all of a sudden you see BINOMISTAS really getting themselves off to a stronger start, although Mini got to be careful here in the middle lane. Miggy tries to hit him up with that Tidebringer. It does a fair bit of damage, but not quite enough, as Mini will survive, and Jupiter has TP'd in to sort of provide a little bit of extra cover for him as well.
And really, that is the spot where Miggy needs to get aggressive. As soon as he gets his phase boots, everybody has been stuck in the lanes. It's been an all-hands-on-deck situation. I don't think there are any stacks waiting around for him, and again, I feel like that's where Inverse are playing a little bit behind the 8-ball. I feel like BINOMISTAS have been able to sort of play the patch, and even bottom lane, you saw the entire wave getting denied out from Melee, so he's going to have a much slower start. And all of these heroes are so level dependent on the inverse side. If you hit your maybe level 3, level 5 a little bit too slow on the Tiny, then your plays get so much limited. We haven't felt his presence mid at all. And at the same time, they're going to push down your towers. They're going to play these objectives. That's exactly what their lineup's meant to do. And just Abaddon simply coming mid means your tower is going to take another 1500 damage, and every single DK right click is just another 100 HP missing from your tower. Nice aggro from Miggy to sort of make sure that the catapult does die, but
they're giving this a go. Nuagas dropping low. Nuagas taken down, but Sexy Fat's in. He does have the Pulse Nova, so the damage is going to be there. Mini, though, starting to drop a little bit low himself, but he is committed to this fight. He wants to be able to get something, but Sexy Fat actually going to run out of mana. Can't keep pushing. Miggy will survive, and he is going to be okay. That damage deferral from the Rum actually does help to keep him up there, as Miggy will live, and overall, if you're inverse, that's probably the best possible scenario you could have gotten there. Nuagas gets taken down, the tower survives, and BINOMISTAS gets pushed back despite the fact that the Leshrac TP'd in. So they hold the line, at least for now. That tower does still take some damage overall, but again, it's probably the best they could have hoped for in that scenario in particular.
Yeah, they get a return kill. They get a little bit more XP going their way. Oh, Jupiter, nice bushwalk, keeping Quesadilla off. And Quesadilla was able to get his level 6 top, so the Omni Slash is available. And I think Sexy Fat just rotated a little bit too soon. He wanted to play on the fact that he had Pulse Nova, but again, the Rum just a little bit too strong. The thing is, you can't just defend your towers. You need to be able to get aggressive. You need to find these plays. And that's where the Kunkka might need to make a little bit more of an aggressive position in these lanes. Because right now, he's just killed the mid creep wave. Keep this DK off the tower as long as you can. And of course, it'll work, but Mini is always going to be here. He's going to stay here until your mid tower is dead. And how many people you bring, it's going to be echoed throughout the side lanes, as that's when Benny just starts to pull further and further away from the Mars. And here we go. This is round 2 mid, but I feel like it's still so hard for them to ever make these plays.
This tower's just going to take a beating again. Mini, though, he wants in for the actual kill. I don't know if he has the damage for this, but Miggy is just losing more and more of that HP, getting pushed back. There's going to be the X into the Ghost Ship. They do hit him up. Melee's in with the Arena as well, into the Spear Stun. And I believe that's going to be enough to take the DK down, as both Mini and Nuagas will fall. They do get the tower, though. That's the objective they wanted. Quesadilla, however, is able to pick up the double kill, but elsewhere on the map, Sexy Fat, realizing that the Jug TP'd away, went in for the kill onto the Tiny, was able to secure it. So 2 for 1 would initially sort of be looking like it goes in Inverse's favor, but with the tower gold being factored in, I think BINOMISTAS are still able to sort of pull that one to a relatively even exchange, and now Sexy Fat has the opportunity to push for another tower up top.
And really, what is your response? Your response is the Mars Arena. And it's honestly perfectly played from Melee. You were able to kill 2 heroes. Unfortunately, he tried for it, but wasn't able to deny the tower. Oh, Quesadilla.
Oh, man.
Well,
double stun coming out, not enough HP to survive it. And that one should not have happened, to be perfectly honest. Quesadilla should not have been sort of caught out in that scenario, but doesn't have much of a choice there. Now Jupiter is pushing into the jungle. He has eyes on Miggy. They might actually be able to go for this. Miggy's going to drop down the X, but yep. There's the stun into the sharpshooter. Nuagas even comes in with the mist coil for a little bit of extra damage, and that's 2 of the cores taken down on relatively low plays resource-wise for BINOMISTAS. They get the Leshrac just casually in there for the Jug, and then the 2 supports are able to snipe out the Kunkka, and now Sexy Fat takes the tower top.
And it's honestly such a sick play from both Jupiter and Nuagas. He actually miscoiled a large ramp just to give Jupiter enough XP to get the sharpshooter. So really, that play isn't even possible if Miggy isn't farming his stack, because Jupiter doesn't have his 6. He would have had to wait for the tome otherwise. It's just such sick plays coming out from BINOMISTAS, and again, everything just feels so clean. It feels like nothing they're doing is sort of going wrong right now. Even that push mid, it still resulted in the tower dying, and usually we see DKs, they want to get aggressive with their ult. That completely makes sense, but we don't see them really push the envelope too hard until they get this Blink Dagger. But again, they've got the 2 active heroes. They've got Edict. They've got this DK for him, and now this is a tier 2 getting punished.
Inverse,
and
though,
here we come Melee.
They want the fight. They're looking for it. They're going to push in. They drop down the Arena into the Spear Stun. They're going to get the X down onto the Leshrac as well, but okay, never mind. They do get the timing there. Thought the Ghost Ship might have been a little bit mistimed, but they do hit up Sexy Fat. Do they have the damage to bring him down, though? Right now, it's looking like they should be able to finish him off with the toss. However, that bought the DK enough time to TP himself out. So Mini does escape. Sexy Fat basically has to sacrifice himself. So if you're inverse, you needed that play. You get the kill, you save the tier 2 tower, at least for the time being, and you live to fight another day. But now Quesadilla, he's got to run. No Blade Fury up for 2. Mini's trying to track him down. I think Quesadilla should be fine here, although Mini is actually pretty fast. He might just be able to sort of keep chasing this one if he can get the Dragon Tail down. Can he get the vision he needs right now? No. And at this point, it looks like he is eventually just going to back himself away. Not willing to chase it too much, but up in the top lane, they're trying to chase onto Miggy. Oh, man. They stun him up there, with the Split Earth, canceling the TP, as Miggy will be taken down. That's the Kunkka's 2nd death? Yes. 2nd death of the game here. So they're not really creating a whole lot of space to keep these core heroes alive, but we are seeing a potential play elsewhere on the map. As the Ab is going to get jumped in on, he needs 2 seconds left for the ult. Can he get it off in time? No. Didn't get that cooldown, and now Mini is all of a sudden fighting alone in the bottom lane. He does have reinforcements TPing in, though, so if he can sort of hold the line here for just a little while, they could bring Jupiter in, but the question is, where does he actually go? They're looking at Flax right now. The Bushwhack, though, actually doesn't have a tree to connect to, so Jupiter is the one who's going to get jumped in on. He's stunned up, hit by the Avatos, and Jupiter's gone. Now Mini is once again alone in this lane, and he's just going to back himself away.
Marina?
He's going to keep Minute, Melee, looking for the spear, trying to time it out correctly as he does make the connection, but now Nuaga's going to TP in. Drops down the Aphotic Shield. He is trying to create some sort of space for his teammate as they're actually going to turn around. Looking for Flax, able to take him down. But what else can Mini get here? Dragon Tail's back up, stunning up Slaw. They're going to hit him with the Mistcoil as well, but now there's going to be the Ghost Ship coming in. The X-Mark spot is there as well. Mini's going to get pulled back into it. The Aphotic Shield dropped onto him, but it's not enough. Mini dead. Nuaga's now on the run, tries to live with the borrowed time, but he just can't go anywhere. Once the ult ends, they're able to pick him off again, and honestly, for Inverse, that fight is absolutely incredible. I'm not sure they even should have had the opportunity to find a couple of those kills on the back end. Felt like BINOMISTAS were just too staggered in that sort of overall engagement, and they do end up paying for it pretty heavily.
And they do keep the fight going. That was, I think, a 2v5 for the longest time there. And it's hard to say that that's not going really well for Inverse, but at the same time, Benny claims a tier 2 tower. He's got a sub 13-minute Battle Fury. I don't know what Flax is doing up here.
Yeah, this is not a good idea. Benny's just going to go in with the ult.
Tossed,
he's got the root. Okay. But, I mean, the toss saves him, but I'm not really sure how much good that does. But over on the other side of the map, Slaw's at least able to find, I believe, a solo kill onto Sexy Fat. The Leshrac was farming on relatively low HP and mana, so they are going to be able to bring him down, but it could cost them elsewhere, as Miggy is going to get hit up by those whirling axes. They try for the Bushwhack. It actually doesn't connect. Good play from Miggy again, cutting down that tree, so he's just faster on the reaction times. Without that, I think he gets pulled back in, so Miggy's able to walk away. The tier 1 tower was taken in the bottom lane, and if you're BINOMISTAS, you're starting to show some cracks in the armor, so to speak. Still up by 3k, but we have seen Inverse really sort of eking out advantages in situations where they're really not expected to come out ahead.
And even Quesadilla, he's just trying to play the game. And if it is mode survive, there is a Blink Dagger coming out on the Tiny. There is an Armlet coming out from the Kunkka. There are these little item timings that they can definitely still play around. Unfortunately, what they're matching up to is Greaves almost finished on the Leshrac, and DK almost finishing his Blink Dagger as well. And then it's really just going to be a battle of whose timing is better, whose heroes are better. And it's hard not to give it to BINOMISTAS, at least so far, but especially watching Benny just farm a 4-stack of Ancients, it feels like this troll is just going to accelerate. What I'm worried about is if a full 5-on-5 fight does break out, I don't think there's any way that BINOMISTAS lose it. I think right now, Inverse, they need to play scrappy, they need to play these side lanes, otherwise they're not going to be able to handle it ult top.
He was able to get away from the initial fight, but he runs directly into Nuagas, so they will be able to find
another
that kill.
one.
Slaw taken down as well. Double kill for the Abba. That's not something you see every day, and they might be going for even more, but Melee's able to drop down the arena into the spear, but yeah, the Aphotic Shield's there to cancel it. Sexy Fat's going to continue to push forward. Flax will be taken down, and now Mini is in with the Dragon Tail stun. They've locked down the Mars. Melee really has nowhere to go. He has no spells available, so he's just going to be slowly but surely taken down by the Edict, as actually Mini's the one who gets the kill. Either way, though, it's BINOMISTAS taking that fight, and Miggy, you can't be here. He's still farming up in that camp. Mini goes in for the blink. The Bushwhack will be there for the follow-up stun, and they need help. Quesadilla is going to try to come in here, hoping to keep his teammate alive. He was thinking about sort of going all in, and he does now have the Omni Slash available. The problem is they pop borrowed time, so Nuagas is not really going to be the target that they want. But Miggy dropping down that Ghost Ship onto the Abba, but they're not dealing with the actual cores. Miggy and Benny just continue to push their way forward, and now what in the world happened there? The Jug actually did go for the Omni. It pulls him away from any actual targets, though, so the damage just isn't going to be here. And right now, this is just getting kind of sad. They're not able to get on to anyone as Benny pops the ult, jumps in onto Miggy. They'll take down the Kunkka to get the stun onto Quesadilla as well with the Dragon Tail into the Split Earth, and Quesadilla will be run down. Flax in trouble as well. Inverse are just absolutely falling apart at this point, and BINOMISTAS just slicing their way through this lineup over and over again.
And it's the full 5-man. They come out in full force. Greaves is finished, Blink is finished, and they strike just a moment too early. There isn't that Blink Dagger finished. The Tiny was at 2,000 gold. He instead dies twice, so now he's sitting even further away from that Blink Dagger. He just needs to take a step back, but it just felt like they just wanted to find something, anything. That Omni Slash was so unfortunate, though, just bouncing, and Okay, Miggy was able to get Jupiter, I think, bottom, but again, they expend so much to get so little, and now DD on Benny, I think after this Roche, this is just going to continue to feel bad. There is a ward scouting it out, but again, they have to make this rotation so quickly because it's a troll. He's just going to keep hitting it.
They're not going to be able to make it there in time. Slaw would have been the closest one, and you already see him just sort of shoving off towards that top lane. So they're not going to look for the contest here. Roshan will be taken. The Aegis goes into the hands of Benny on that troll Warlord, and I mean, at this point, it's starting to look rough. If you're inverse, who is your damage dealer right now? The Jug, theoretically, if all the Omnislash hits had actually connected onto the right heroes, maybe he could get something done, but if you look at him item-wise, he's sitting on a Blade of Alacrity and a Hand of Midas 17 minutes in. He is not doing damage. Flax on the Tiny, still trying to work towards his Blink Dagger, so he's not exactly going to be that initiator for them just yet. Miggy went for the Armlet, but we've seen, really, once the X into the Ghost Ship play comes through, his damage output tends to drop off. So, as of right now, the answer to that question, who's the damage dealer, is actually no one.
Oh, Miggy.
They've just got to sit and wait, but yeah.
He's got a TP now, but it's too clean.
They're not going to let this happen. They're not going to let Miggy farm up. They're not going to give this space to their opponents. They go directly in onto the Kunkka, and Miggy gets taken down again. This Kunkka really doesn't seem to be able to catch a break right now, and if you're BINOMISTAS, what do you do off the back of this? You've taken tier 2s both mid and top, so maybe you start rotating bot. Maybe they look for a high ground push. They've still got the Aegis for about 4 minutes, so realistically speaking, I suppose they could take a look around, poke their head up onto that high ground, see what they could get, but they would have to group up rather significantly for that, and right now that's really not happening. Benny's just going to push out the bottom lane, try to get some damage onto the tower, try to farm up as best as he can as he's working. Not sure what he's working towards just yet. He finished off the BKB a little while back, and now running into Quesadilla.
He needs to be careful.
Doug, this is not just a bailout play. You're not just going to be able to sort of spin TP out of here. As his TP was still on cooldown, he is going to look for it now, but the damage is just too much. That was kind of tip-worthy, to be honest. Mini will hit Quesadilla up on that one, and it just feels like a risk that at this point in the game, not only should you not take it, you can't afford to take that kind of risk on Inverse.
And you ask what they're going to do with all of the space they have, and they really can do whatever they want. They don't want to break through the high ground mid just yet, so instead, they're going to make the play where they know that they can't afford to glyph, and yep, just another one. Another one bites the dust.
This is starting to get a little out of hand. Slaw taken down, Quesadilla falls in the bottom lane, tier 1 taken, tier 2 dropping. Nuagas is coming over to apply that sort of curse, but Benny doesn't even need it. With his own fervor, he just tears through that tower, and now it's just going to be presumably a high ground push. Aegis still in his hands for 2.5, so Benny can push forward. Sexy Fat's got the Edict back up. They're going right in there, and if you're Inverse, do you have a plan right now to stop this? Quesadilla will push his way forward. They did pop the glyph as well. Now Flax in there with the initial stun with the Avalanche, but there's going to be, oh man, there's going to be the bushwhack onto 2. Flax taken down. Quesadilla has to spin himself away from that fight. Miggy, though, does come in with the X into the boat, but at that point, Mini, he's so tanky, he really doesn't care about that damage. He's just fine. I think the Hood even ate most of the magic damage from that play, so they just regroup. They're just fine. That Soulbind is almost entirely useless, and here comes BINOMISTAS right back in, looking for the tier 3 tower, but Slaw actually going to get stunned up instead. They get the sharpshooter hit onto him as well. Slaw will be taken down, but Nuagas in a little bit of trouble himself, but he has the ult even if they do catch him, so he's going to be just fine. Quesadilla is the one who goes down, and he's dead with no buyback. Miggy's going to be falling here as well, and this one, I mean, this one might just be over fast. There's nothing Inverse can do. They've lost 2 of their 3 cores. No one has a buyback, and the racks are going to be taken.
And it's just exactly what BINOMISTA's lineup is geared for. They have 3 of the best tiers in the game and just mulling over these objectives. Again, it's just another blink stun. The Legas is so patient. Even though some of these bushwhacks have been getting sort of missed, it don't really matter. They're just going to push in. Sexy Fat's got Greaves in 1 more second. The push really never needs to stop, and I think pretty soon here, Inverse are just going to call it. There's not much they can do at this point. There's still an Aegis they need to play into. Benny didn't greed out at all. No Sanj and Yasha. He's just got his BKB, so there really is no threat. Even if he did get Omni Slash, I don't think there's any way he dies at this point. Quesadilla just doesn't have any farm. And Miggy, I mean, he's going for it, but I just think they've got too much healing.
But yeah, immediate Aphotic Shield. There's no way they can get through this. Sexy Fat's going to be just fine. Meanwhile, Mini and Jupiter are just going to jump in. They get the stun down. Quesadilla will be locked in place. Can they finish him off? Not quite yet. Melee's able to come in there, dropping down the arena, so they live to fight a little bit longer. But Benny, That's just going to be the Aegis. He's right back into the fight. Mini, meanwhile, pops the BKB, pushing his way forward. They're trying to lock down the Kunkka, not able to finish him off just yet, but now with Benny back in the fight, the damage output has returned. Quesadilla will fall. Miggy desperately trying to get himself back towards his own fountain here. That Glimmer Cape out from his teammate will be enough to keep him alive for the time being, but Inverse, they're corralled back into their own fountain. Melee's going to go for the spear, doesn't actually connect, and now he is going to pay for it. He's hit up by the root, but that Ingswell is going to be able to allow him to fall back. At this point, though, it just feels like BINOMISTAS kind of just playing with their food here. Mini jumping back in, going for the stun. Flax locked down. Miggy, meanwhile, hit up by the Yule Scepter, so he's not able to immediately help his teammates, and once he comes down, he's just going to get rooted up and taken down. Mini pops the ult. Flax dead. Miggy gone. Slaw dead. Melee does get off that spear, but it's onto Nuagas, who has the borrowed time, and that's it. The GG will be called. BINOMISTAS closes it out in style with the full 5-man wipe. They will be moving on here as they take game 2, and they'll take the series 2-0.
Yeah, and it shouldn't have been a mismatchup, right? This was your second place in the lower division versus the 4th place in the lower division, but it really felt like in no essence of the even of the word Inverse ever had a shot in this game. I think from the draft we were already feeling that something didn't feel quite right. I don't know if the team was a little bit dissuaded after that first game or just not feeling up to the task, but BINOMISTAS looked fantastic. And even in their showing yesterday, we know that BINOMISTAS can take games off of these other South American teams, and this was just a clinic. I think their draft was just way too good. I just don't think Inverse really had any really just gas left in the tank. And again, it's just these upper bracket teams going to the lower bracket and then feeling like they take that experience, they put it immediately to use, and they just kind of work on these lower bracket teams and just send them home. Second 2 of the day.
And, I mean, that is one of the advantages coming from that upper bracket. Obviously, the immediate sort of thing you think about is a team having sort of 2 chances. Right? If you lose in the upper bracket, you fall to the lower bracket. You have to play fewer games to potentially reach that grand final. That's the immediate benefit. But BINOMISTAS got the chance to play yesterday. They got that chance to sort of dip their toes in the water, put up a strong fight against an SG Esports squad that many look at as one of the strongest teams in the field. So that kind of chance to sort of get your experience right off the bat, sort of shake off the rust and the jitters and just get yourself down to work is really something that BINOMISTAS really seemed to benefit from, in Hokori as well. In that previous series, unfortunately, they both lost those upper bracket matchups, but we were talking about it so much. It seemed like they learned so much from those losses. They come into this lower bracket facing off against teams like Lockdown Defenders and Inverse, who didn't have the benefit of being in official action on that first day, and you can see the results. It just seemed like they had the meta, maybe not down perfectly, but they had a better understanding of it compared to those teams that had to sort of sit idle yesterday afternoon. So the BINOMISTAS puts it together pretty perfectly. I think between this match and game 1, Benny did not die a single time. 4-0 on the Troll Warlord. I think he was something like 9-0 on the TB in game 1. So he does incredibly well. The team sort of just coalesces around him, and BINOMISTAS put together a fantastic performance to advance to the next round in the lower bracket.
Yeah, and you see Sexy Fat and Mini as well with their KDAs just mirroring each other. I don't think many teams, or at least many lineups, can handle the pressure that comes out from DK and Lesh. It's just, you can't. They're just too good at killing your buildings, and just the Troll World to top it all off. You win your lane, then you just take all the other objectives. It just felt like BINOMISTAS had everything in that game. And Inverse, they first picked Grimstroke, you know. What other team is first picking Grimstroke in our day? I don't think many of them are out there, but still really convincing. Looked really good, really solid. I'm excited for more BINOMISTAS games.
Yeah, I mean, really, they seem to be the squad with the most momentum here. Obviously, they're still in the lower bracket, but a 2-0 sweep here against Inverse after what was a very solid 1-2 defeat against SG Esports. So really, you talked about it a little bit earlier, ET. You get to a certain point outside of maybe the bottom teams in this field, anyone is capable of taking a match or even a series off of anyone else. There really is no massive favorite. The squads that we sort of thought would have been the favorites initially, No Ping, they got knocked down. Infamous ended up in the lower bracket as well. SG did remain up top, but it took them a full 3 games to deal with BINOMISTAS. So we're all of 2 days into this qualifier, and you've already sort of tossed out those traditional roles of who's the favorite and who's the underdog. Anyone is capable of making a run at this point, and I would not want to have to play up against BINOMISTAS if I were any of the other teams in the field right now.
No, and that's where, of course, getting to see them play this game, it's sort of them putting their stamp in the ground where we're going to have to see when they do eventually rematch up later on in the bracket, what's going to come out. Is something going to change in them? Are we going to see sort of the similar strategies? Because right now, the top of the bracket, the top, I want to say 6 teams, they all play very, very similar Dota. I think Infamous maybe being a little bit on the outlier there, but every team is really taking that knowledge and that experience playing versus each other so constantly and then just putting it to work. It feels like we're watching 6 teams play against each other sometimes, just with how similar everybody thinks about how Dota should be played in the region. And that's why all these teams take games off each other, because everybody has a very similar idea of what they want and how that wants to be played. So it's just fantastic to watch.
Really, the display of, I mean, some of the talent in the South American region. You've already got 2 teams from SA making their way to TI through the direct sort of invitations, but there's a lot of talent, a lot of skill to show with these squads. We're seeing it sort of put on display here. And ET at this point, I mean, I made a prediction. I'm sure we all did for the sort of shards back, what, like a week ago? But at this point, I don't think any prediction feels safe. Mentioned it already, but there is no sort of clear-cut favorite. So this SA regional qualifier has been looking pretty good so far, and we're not actually done just yet. Although, let me sort of quantify that statement. ET and I are done for the day. 2 series in the books for us, but the action is going to be continuing on throughout the rest of the day. Day 2 is not over just yet. Over on BTS 2, Beyond the Summit 2, we will have some upper bracket matchups going down here. Those 2 matchups from the upper half of the bracket will be going down later on today. Meanwhile, here on BTS 4, ET and I are going to be passing off the mic. It'll be Cryptic and Neff handling the 2 lower bracket matchups still left on today's schedule. So the Dota is not coming to an end anytime soon, despite the fact that myself and ET will be backing away. So BTS 2 and BTS 4 going to be continuing to bring you coverage of this South American qualifier. For now, though, we will be saying goodbye. So, ET, any closing words here for the nice folks out there as we sort of wind this one down?
Just SA #1, best region. They're gonna win a TI. We'll see him at the international.
I'm gonna tell Two-Base that you said that. All of them. Every single one of them. ET said SA is #1. We'll have to deal with those consequences. But yeah, that'll be it for us. As I said, we're going to be handing it off to Cryptic and Neff in, I believe, just a couple of minutes here. So they will be taking you through the rest of the lower bracket here for today. So thank you all for watching. Stick around. There will be more SA Dota coming up in just a little bit.